going to be doing a rather complicated soap, and this is one that's going to take me probably a full day, if not a few days, to finish because of the layers and how they have to set up. So the first thing, I've actually had this soap as an idea for a while. It's going to be a ray of sunshine, and what I wanted to do, two things, was trying to figure out how to get all the angles correct and then also having the correct mold. I didn't want to do my typical, let me backtrack, my typical molds are just the 10 bar molds, and I want to do full batches, which I do 20 bar batches. And I did not want to try to do this in two separate molds and try and figure out all the angles and everything like that. So my amazing husband made me a mold. I did put the freezer paper in it already, and he made this mold for me. I'm super excited to give it a try, and this will be really great for this project. Hopefully things will go okay. I also needed some way to figure out the exact layers, because a lot of times when I do layers, I kind of eyeball it, and that's totally fine. But this one, I wanted to have the exact layers, rays of the sunshine. So I have the caterpillar, I don't know what they call it, caterpillar tool, but it actually looks like caterpillar. So you can put it in all these different angles, and I put the mold in it, and I used this little level that I stole from my husband's toolkit. He has several of them. So I grabbed this one, I used the level, and I have taped on the inside of each one is my little graph, and I will show you that here in a second. But what I did is I ended up putting it here, and then I looked down it with the level on the line to figure out what the angle was that I needed. And I will have to flip the mold back and forth and flip it around. So I did make sure to tape a guide on each end of it. So that will be that part. There's actually two layers that I'm going to have to actually have it tilted forward. So I made this long enough where I'm actually gonna have to flip the paper over and tape or something to it to keep it solid, to keep the batter and stuff from pouring out. And this batch will probably take me a good day, if not 2 days, to finish. And I'm not even sure if I'm going to get started on it today, because it's getting kind of late, and it took me a long time to get all of the pieces put together and all the math done. Let me talk about the design first. I said I wanted to do a ray of sunshine, and I'm using ray of sunshine fragrance oil from brambleberry. This, actually I have this mixed a little bit with yuzu. It smells really good. And I do have some more ray of sunshine too, but it's supposed to behave really well. No discoloration, but I think that'll be really fun. The colors I'm going to be using is Yellow Vibrance and Electric Orange. These are both from Nurture Soap, which is now Nurture Handmade, and I think that'll be fun. I'm going to do the sun as the orange, and then I'm going to alternate white and yellow, but I think the yellow I might do maybe some swirls of orange in there. I'm not quite sure just yet. I think it'd be really cool if I could try to make things exactly opposites, but it'll be hard with the colors, and I'll explain that here in just a second. So first, the complications, figuring out the math, and I use graph paper to do that. The first issue that I had, and this is kind of trying to figure out the colors, is I wanted the rays to be even. And I don't know if you can tell here, but the rays are not even. So what I had done is when I drew everything out, I made everything even from the outside of the circle. And that actually made each one of these the same amount of soap, but it didn't look even at all. So then I'm like, okay, I need to make them even from the circle, not the outside. So that makes the rays all look more even, but every single one of these lines is going to have a different amount of soap in it. So that is where the math comes in. So what I did is I count up every single one of these little squares, and that is assigned a number for the whole entire part. And here is my math. And I love math, thankfully. I did have to grab my daughter's algebra calculator to do some of the fractions, but that's fine. So every single one of these, there's 200 squares. Every single one of these has X number of squares. So I had to take, like, I've got the colorants, how much colorant I need for each one. I've got the oils, my lye solution, and then my fragrance oil. The fragrance oil is going to be teeny tiny, so I went ahead and did that in grams. And what I'm going to do for the colors is here, I decided I like that one better with the white on the bottom, is I'm going to have this as an orange, and then every other one is going to be uncolored batter, because that will be consistent. And the colored ones are going to be yellows and oranges kind of mixed. With this, because I need to fill this all the way up, I am going to be using a 2-to-1 liquid water to lye solution. Usually I do a 1.5-to-1, but I'm going to up my water to make sure that I have enough batter to totally fill everything up, so I should have a little bit extra. It will make for a little bit longer cure time. That's okay, and it actually might give some glycerin livers, which is okay too, because I think that would look really cool. So the complications where I said I have to cover it up is with this layer. I'm actually going to do this one first, number 1, which is my sun. I made myself a little scraper tool out of cardboard and taped it up. So I will put that in, and then I'll scrape off the orange to make the sun, make sure that is really well set up. And then I'm actually going to do these two, that's the top. I'm going to do these 2 layers first. And I'm going to have to tilt the mold quite a bit this way. That is where I'll have to have this covered up. Then once that is well set up, so remember this one right here, I'll have to pour that, let it set up till it's really good and solid. Same thing with this one, wait till it's really good solid. Then I'll flip it over, and then I will start going this way. Once I get to this part, I will have to cover up the other side of that mold so all the stuff doesn't leak out. Because this is the top of the soap. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to pour this sideways and still have these little bits? I hope that makes sense with kind of what I'm envisioning, what's happening with it. And fingers crossed, everything will go okay. So step 1, pour that sun, and then I will pour this one, let it set up, that one, and then I'll flip everything around and then start the alternating to go this way. And then I will pour that one very last. This one will have just a slot to pour it in. Fingers crossed, everything goes really smoothly. Let's see, one last thing. I'm using my slow moving recipe, which will be really good for having enough time to do all these individually. However, it will take longer for each layer setup. So that's why I said I don't know if it's going to take me a day or 2 to get all of these layers poured. One last thing I wanted to mention, I know I'm talking a lot, but one last thing I wanted to mention was trying to get the colors exact. So what I have found in the years I've been making soap is there's so many different factors that can happen with the colors in soap, even if you're doing just black. Sometimes the color, sometimes not the color, the temperature, different things can affect how the color turns out. So I have soaps that I had to do layers and I use the exact same amount of colorants, but the temperature had changed, or maybe I mixed it just a little bit too much, and that can make those colors change. Because my daughter's like, oh, it'd be really cool if you alternated blue on every single one of these. So the problem number 1 is each one of these is different. Even though I did the calculations on the math for this, it is going to be very hard to get the exact same color blue. So it's better to have a little bit of variation in those colors. That's why I was thinking about doing some swirls. And also, since I'm at different time frames, my temperatures are going to be a little bit different. I may have to heat up my oils throughout the day as I'm doing it to make sure that things are warm enough to do it. And the alternating the white, the reason why I did that is that's just plain batter, and that will be totally fine. I think if this goes well, I think some neat ideas to do would be like a rainbow or even like a moonscape. Just different ideas. I can do some blacks and purples and, really cool stuff. So I think I've talked enough. Hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, this is going to be quite the process. And yeah, I'll come back when everything is ready to go and we can get started. talk about how things went last night. It was a very late night last night. I was up till well past midnight because I wanted to get not only the sun poured, but I also wanted to get those two rays of sunshine, those two angled ones that were upright, that were on the top of the mold, done. And with my slow moving recipe and then my the slow moving fragrance oil, which it is very slow moving, it took over an hour for the batter to even set up enough to scrape it, because I kept scraping it and then it would just pool in. And I did add a bit too much on my math for the sun. The 2 layers I've done are just perfect, so that is good there. And so I had to wait, like I said, it was well over an hour before I could do the 1 layer, and then I had to wait an hour between each one. And then my phone was at like 8% battery, and I didn't have enough to be able to actually record this part of me covering up the top of the mold. However, I have to do it again when I get to the other side of the soap. So I'll show you how I did that, or I guess I can reverse it here. And even the extra batter I had from scraping the sun, it was still, I actually spooned it into 3 different little molds. And last night before I went to bed, I was still able to move it over, and it's still pretty soft, even though I have it covered. Okay, another thing I did change is when I was scraping, I had a really hard time getting a really clean surface on the bottom because I didn't want to mess up that little curve underneath the sun. So I did end up with some orange down there. I decided to, once I take the soap out of the mold and cut it, I'm just going to flip it on its side. So I'm going to reverse the colors. This is my original idea. So this is a sun I poured first, and then I did layer 2, then layer 3. The plan is today I'm going to start on layer 4 and work back up this way. This one was when I was trying to decide colors. I really like that orange on top, so I just took this one and I'm just going to flip it. So this is now going to the top. So I poured 2 and 3, and I did white on the first layer because this was nice and clean surface, and then I'll end up with 4 down there because there's no way that I'll know if I have that super clean until I take it out and cut it, because it has that little bit of the circle that goes in underneath the sun. Okay, and I did go ahead and add a little bit of the orange. So I did the main color of that batter as the yellow, and then I went ahead and added a little bit of orange and just did some drop swirls, so that'll be really cool looking. With this part of the soap, if I need to take some out and do like a little bit of Ciaglia, I can always scoop some out and add that in if I need a little bit more volume to these layers, but I should be okay judging by what I had so far last night. Okay, so I have sun done, layers 2 and 3. Layer 3, if you remember me talking about it, actually had to be this way a bit. So it's actually tilted forward where, you know, if I didn't have this covering it up, all the soap would pour out. So let's go ahead and take this off and see what we have. One thing that I learned very early on with soap making is that you have to change your plans sometimes as you go along. And with this one, I'm going to change my plans again. I know I just talked, but we're going to change things a little bit again, because when I uncovered this, I'm like, that kind of looks like cheese, and I don't want it to look like cheese, and I'm afraid to go further and then cut it, and then I'm just like, oh, it looks like cheese. So I'm going to add some pink. So I think with every other layer, here's that one I did again, I think I'm going to do some yellow and pink, and then back to the yellow and orange, because that'll be opposite of that one, and then yellow and pink. Hopefully that will make it not look like cheese. And I know earlier I also said that I wasn't going to do blue, but I think what I'm going to do is on those white layers, I know this one doesn't have any blue in it, but I think what I'm going to do on the white layers is go ahead and do some drop swirls of some blue in the white batter. This is blue slushy from Brambleberry, and this blue I know I can use in very light amounts. Some blues, if you use in really light amounts, will turn gray or they'll turn green. I know this one does not turn green, so that'll be okay if I do some drop swirls in that. Hopefully that'll look okay. Back to the Nurture Soap Pink. This is Pink Vibrant. So I think I'm ready to go. So I have this set for that 4th layer on the bottom will be yellow and pink, and I think we can go on from here without stopping again. I hope. Fingers crossed.